I was in my American history class at the time when the shooting happened. The shooting took place in the main office of my school, and my class was to the far left of the school. It was during lunch hour, but my class had already come back from lunch. At the time of the shooting, I had earbuds in because we were working on a project for the class. My friend bumped into me and told me we were in a code red and that we had to do the procedural stuff. Lights off. No one in sight of the window on the door, everyone sitting on the ground, no talking, no cell phones. The no talking rule always gets broken because people want to hear what other people think about what's going on. The year of the shooting, I was a freshman. The shooter was a senior and had been suspended due to doing donuts in the parking lot. He left school, did some K2, police reports said, came back with his father's loaded handgun and shot the vice principal and principal. Principal survived, the VP did not. The student left the building and drove somewhere, parked, and took his own life. Sad thing was that the VP had a son that taught at our school. I didn't have him as a teacher, but he took a few weeks plus after the shooting. And all the while I was working on my American history project, not knowing what happened until someone announced on the intercom what had happened. After a couple hours of being in a code red, police started to escort classrooms outside the building. Rough next couple days for some... two. Not me, but my wife. She was a senior at St. Pius High School in Ottawa. It was a Catholic school with nuns and brothers for teachers. A guy she knew walked in with a shotgun right in front of the class as students were just getting in. Then he started shooting. My wife was about 4 from the front, and everyone scrambled and screamed to get to the back. He got 5 or 6 in the front center, one guy in the face, and he died. She said there was blood everywhere. The teacher was a male brother and moved to get in the way to save the students. She said it all happened so fast. Then the shooter moved out of the class away from the teacher and blew his head off in the hallway. She said when he died, they left the classroom and had to step over the body. She slipped on some blood and that his entire face was blown off. She doesn't like to talk about it much, but when we were watching the news about Columbine a few years ago, she opened up. The guy that got killed was a friend, and a few of the students were wounded badly but survived. One girl lost her eye, I think. She says the guy was a real loner and raped and killed a girl he liked right before the shooting. Some of the other guys had teased him pretty hard. 3. When I was in 7th grade, there was a new guy that came in. We'll call him A. We were very good friends, as he was with basically everyone. He was extremely charismatic. He had amazing drawing skills with a very particular cartoony weird art style. He wasn't edgy per se, but he was one of those fuck God, fuck religion kind of people. We played a lot of Xbox together, and the absolute only games he played were shooters. Black, Halo, Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, and Sniper Elite were his entire game roster. His dad was from Belgium, I think, and they had a couple of weapons, in a country in which, unless it's police, you'll never see a person with a gun, ever. In 10th grade, I moved schools to one closer to my house, but my best friends, one guy and 3 girls, all stayed behind. So did my now wife, but we weren't dating at the moment. So I still stayed in touch with most of the people from that school. The principal that we had was famed for being a massive bitch before she got to that school, and her arrival wasn't exactly with open arms, but everyone put up with it at the end. There was a point in which A started handing out bullets, or bullet casings, can't remember, to people he deemed important. He gave these to my best friends, all 4 of them, and to my wife, who was his girlfriend for the past year and so. He had a habit of making a cut in his forearm and sucking his own blood, and he kept preaching that Thursday was going to be the day. This kept happening for like a week until said Thursday, when he went to the principal's office, talked with her for about 5 minutes, then shot her in the head. He then ran to a field nearby where he has his backpack and where he was allegedly planning on shooting himself. But he wasn't able to do it. So he went back to the front of the school where he just sat until police came for him. This was the first fatal school shooting in my country, and it was talked about for quite a while. She died like a week and a half later, and he was sentenced to 10 years, I think. It freaked me out when my mother mentioned that I was lucky I was not in the school anymore, since it was discussed that he held resentment towards me because I started dating his ex-GF, my now wife. I never knew if this was true or not, but it makes me think. The guy calls and speaks frequently with my wife now. I think she went to see him a couple of weeks ago along with some school friends. 4. High school for me was extremely bad. It would have been fine if it was just slight name calling or just being pushed around every so often, but it was a whole lot worse than that. Here's a little bit of a background to my school. I live in an extremely popular tourist area with 1 million tourists each year with a local population less than 10K. My high school was considered outside of the city limits and was considered a county school. The reason for this is because local business owners, who don't even live in the same state, push back city limits to avoid the city taxes. Because it was considered a county high school, it lacked funding, still does, with too many students. Even just this last year in 2013, they still have to carry around books, not computers, for all their classes. About 80% of the students came to my school from other schools because they were kicked out and they refused to take them back. A lot of them were convicted felons. This resulted in terrible students with teachers who were not paid enough to care, and oftentimes did things they were really not supposed to do. My sophomore year of high school was the worst. I got beaten up every day, people stole my things, and I was pushed around by everybody. One day I remember in particular 2 kids pulling out knives to try to cut my throat during class. I told the teacher, who only replied with, "I will deal with it in a minute." And I ended up having to run for my life and call the police. Other things that happened to me during this year include getting stabbed twice, shot at once, run over by a car once, pushed off a 2.5-story balcony, and people trying to beat me to death 3 different times. I could go on, but I don't mean to drag it out as long as I am. For the actual story, at the beginning of 11th grade, I met a guy, we will call him Aspen, because that was his name. Aspen was also picked on just like me, along with 3 other kids nicknamed the Star Wars kids, who were all picked on for no known reason. The 5 of us sat together at lunch for a few months when one day Aspen says, "Wouldn't it be great if everyone here just died?" To which we replayed yes, because we felt these people deserve it for how they all treat us. And we began talking about doing a school shooting. We started out with a list of people we want to keep alive. Then Aspens tells us his father was an avid gun collector and had literally hundreds of guns at his disposal, all with ammunition. At first, the plan was to pull the fire alarm and wait until everybody went outside, but then open fire. But we realized there would be no way of saving the listed people. After a long time planning it out, we discovered we could easily lock the outside, all the doors people would use in about 5 minutes. And after some thought, we decided we were going to lock everybody in, keeping the police out while we did what needed to be done, setting free the good kids, then setting fire to the school. We had everything all set to go. But at the time, there were a lot of school shootings happening, and the school decided to add automatically locking doors to all the doors in case there was a lockdown. After that, we needed to rethink our plan, which was taking so long, the year ended before we could do anything. 12th grade was the best half year of high school I had, because by that time, everyone had known how badly they treated me and everyone else, and I felt really guilty about it. As this continued, people started to apologize for things they had done, and because I'm not some scumbag, I started to forgive them. Aspen wanted to continue with the shooting, but I didn't anymore. So I wrote the principal a note telling him about our plan, telling him Aspen was the ringleader, and a school shooting was avoided. Aspen got arrested, and me and the other 3 Star Wars kids got 3 weeks in ISS, with the exception that we told nobody about what we were planning. I graduated high school in 2014, and I'm happy things ended the way they did without violence.